Hey, what is up guys? I'm filming episode 3 of Life After Lockup. A little late. I normally would post this in the beginning or at least the end of the week, but I've been PMSing a lot, so I'm a little behind, but not really. But if you're new, subscribe, like this video, comment. Check out my new podcast episode. I did post a new podcast episode like yesterday. It's pretty open-minded on Spotify. Make sure you follow me on there so you can keep up with my uploads. Check out all my socials. If you're not keeping up with them, you're missing out. Turning post vacations so you know when I post. In this episode, Gypsy is traveling to New York City to do her parole meeting. She's gonna be meeting up with her Louisiana PO for the first time. So in the beginning of this episode, while they're at the house still, Ryan talks about how he was happy that Gypsy stuck up for him, because I guess he was getting a lot of hate because people were calling him like Peter Griffin and saying that he looked just like Dee Dee and stuff. So she took to social media and like commented that his D was fire and that he rocks his world every day. And of course that went viral in the beginning of this year. Everyone knows that comment, so that's when they were just discussing it like it happened yesterday. But yeah, so he was just kind of like going off of that. He was really geeked over that. Before she went to the airport, I do want to make mentions that she went to a PO like thing, like a little parole office thing, and she had to get a travel permit and she had to do like paperwork and questionnaires, but she was in there for a really long time, like longer than they both expected, so it took up a lot of the time that they were supposed to be at the airport. The drive to the airport, Ryan was getting really antsy. He was kind of snapping at everyone. He was snapping at not only Gypsy, but he was also snapping at the taxi driver. He was kind of like trying to they both were trying to de-escalate the situation, saying that they're going to make it on time. I mean, they were a little bit behind schedule, and they were arguing about a carry-on situation, which I'm going to get into a little bit. The media relations rep called Gypsy, and she was explaining to Ryan that they have to stuff everything in their carry-on. I kind of wasn't understanding this part because it was kind of like jumbled. It was just like, I didn't understand at first why they were upset. It was like saying like if they don't get on the flight soon, they won't be able to make Good Morning America. Ryan explains that he separated his meds and clothes that he had in his carry-on, and then his meds were in his check bag, so they were in 2 different bags. So he was also really annoyed by that. So Gypsy was like playing to him like, why didn't you put your meds with your carry-on? And then he got really frustrated at her, and then he kind of like snapped at her over that. I don't know why he didn't have to snap at everyone over that. He was kind of like looking a little psycho over that. Ryan was like snapping at the taxi driver at this time, and he was like, you're not in the right lane, you're on the right lane. He's like, yeah, I'm in the right lane, I'm in lane C. And he's like, yeah, right, lane C. Calm the fuck down. Like, it's never that deep. Like, you can see him going to lane C in the episode. Like, you can literally see him. But since he's so used to being in control, and I don't think he likes not being in control of things, like it freaks him out when he's not in control of something. When they get to New York, Ryan explains how stressed out he was about arriving there because the PO meeting was like a lot longer than expected. This is when he was talking to the makeup artist before she went on The View, I believe, or Good Morning America. They kept saying both of them, like I kept getting them mixed up, I'm not gonna lie. So I think this is when they were gonna see The View first, I believe. Right to The View, there was like fans outside waiting for them to take pictures, and Ryan kept like getting mad at the I wouldn't say paparazzi, but the fans, because I kind of peeped that whenever it was relating Gypsy, like people were there for Gypsy, not really necessarily there for Ryan, okay? And I was like, Gypsy, let's take pictures, let's take pictures. He's always like, hurry up quickly. Like, you'll peep him so many times in the episode being like, hurry up quickly, like we're on a time crunch apparently. And whenever it's pertaining like both of them, like if they want pictures of both of them, then he's super geeked. He's like enthralled into it, like he loves that. But when it comes to just her, when they want pictures of just her and the fan, he gets kind of irritated. And I don't know if you guys peeped that, but I definitely peeped it, because I just kept peeping that like he got irritated when it was just the attention was just on her. But the reason why it's on her is because she's the one that got out of prison, and her story is so interesting. We don't want to hear about Ryan's story. If it was that interesting, maybe people would care, but since he has connection with Gypsy, that's why he's getting all this attention too. But I think he loves the attention from the media, honestly. He reads all the comments. And I also learned that every time there's a new Gypsy episode, he makes a little recap of his own on his TikTok and says his little hot take on it on his page every time. I try to steer away from his videos because I'm not the biggest fan of him, I'm not gonna lie, but I do peep that every time there's a thing with the media or something and they're saying that he's controlling, he always tries to back it up with something. He always tries to defend himself because he's always trying to say that he's not controlling. He was just trying to like look out for her is what he's saying. And there's also people saying that too, like they felt like he wasn't controlling, they felt like he was just trying to look out for her best interest. But y'all are just tone deaf and blind, because people with common sense can see that he was very controlling. There's a difference between having someone's best interest and being downright controlling about every move. And the producer asked Ryan how he felt about Gypsy taking his defense on social media, and he was like, oh, haters gonna hate. I'm not gonna lie, his like little comments about like the haters or whatever you want to call it was always so freaking embarrassing and cringe to me, because like haters gonna hate was very like much 2012. Like I'm telling you, like that's the shit that people used to say on Facebook. I loved when people like, I think he liked having the fact that Gypsy was taking his side. I think he liked flaunting her. I think he liked flaunting her because he kept making comments like, oh yeah, I'm married to her. And he kept making mentions about how like Ken doesn't have her, and like he's like, oh, he had his time and now it's my turn. Well, she was on The View asking her questions about how she feels about being out and stuff like that, and she said that and what she's going to be doing while she's out. And she said that she wants to be an advocate. She kept saying that she wants to be an advocate even while she was still like in, because she didn't really end up doing that anyway. She kind of was just like, I want to take pictures of every little thing in my life, which there's no issue in that. She did make 1 or 2 posts around Mother's Day about like Munchin by Prazi, and I think there was this one picture where she was sitting down on the floor and she was surrounded by all her medical records, and I think that was one of her advocacy posts. She was aware and acknowledged that she did wrong, and she was like telling people like there is a better way to get out of like abusive situations, like what I did was wrong, murder is wrong. And then like the people on the sidelines were like, what do you mean, like where are you going with this? Because she was just talking about the murder and how like I should never did that. And there was also one person that was like, oh, like don't feel bad like that you did that. And she's like, well, I did do something bad, like I'm gonna feel bad because I did something bad. It was kind of it took a turn. I felt like she could have, like, I don't know if it was like a nervous thing, she could have been nervous because it was her first, I think it was her first real interview since being out, and I think she was just very like nervous, so she was kind of just saying anything that's on her mind. She doesn't have to necessarily always bring up like Dee Dee's death. I feel like she could always like talk about like something else, like how she overcame it and what she learned and stuff like that. Like she doesn't always have to go back and be like, well yeah, I murdered her. I drove to see Nick Viall, I don't know how to say his last name, but they went to go see him to do a podcast with him because of course this is when everyone was trying to grab her while she was still hot and trending. I didn't even know who Nick Viall was until the podcast came out, and she was talking about like her life and what's been going on since she's been released. Podcast Gypsy goes on to say that she wasn't expecting all the media attention, and she does make a lot of mentions in the last few episodes like, damn, I didn't think I was gonna get a lot of media attention. Like she said even in this episode that if she didn't get a lot of media attention or when the hype dies down, she wants to work a 9-to-5, and she wants people to just be like, notice her as a normal person and not just Gypsy Rose Blanchard. So I think it's overwhelming. I think that's why she keeps bringing it up so much. So kind of like negates and has this weird segue, and then she's like, so she starts talking about her ex, and then I think it tied to the media somehow. but she talked about how she was engaged to her ex before, and that the engagement was announced by the media, and then he didn't like the attention that it was given, and so he broke off with her because he got too much media attention and it was kind of overwhelming him. They added Ryan onto the podcast and they asked him how he's feeling about the fame, and he said he was overwhelmed, but he wasn't gonna like leave her because of how famous she was gonna get. Gypsy mentions about Ken reaching out to her stepmom, and then his wife was like, why do you think he decided to reach out? And she was like saying that she feels like he was reaching out to see if he would leave her, she would leave him for Ken. And the fact that she's out, my camera's dying. Let me change this hoe out. Ryan butts in and explains how he like cussed him out. He's always making mentions about how he cussed Ken out and that Ken has reached out to him personally. I don't know what he said. I don't think he mentioned what Ken says, but yeah, it wasn't really that interesting of a podcast. It was kind of boring to watch that segment, I'm not gonna lie. And then they decided to go to Times Square to hang out and shop a little bit. Gypsy wanted to get some like souvenirs from the store. Hanging out, like people started like kind of noticing that she was out. She did post where she was. Also, like in the segment, she did post like, oh, I'm in Times Square. Like she made a little video on her Instagram, and I think people were already there. But there could have been more people hanging out over there because they knew that she was there. There was like people, like there was one person like, oh, I'm happy that you're out, and then like behind her there's people like quietly taking pictures of her. And then as she was walking more into Times Square, people were like yelling out her name, and you can tell that she was getting like really scared and awkward out by it, because she started getting like quieter and quieter about it. She was just like, although she was happy, she was just very like, oh my god, there's people noticing me like everywhere I go. It's kind of overwhelming. She says in her confessional that she doesn't want people to like pity her. She wants people to be happy that she's out and stuff like that, and not know her as like the abused girl basically. At the house, Gypsy mentioned that she has a lot of hate comments along with death threats. So she had a little segment where she was reading all the little comments that she was getting on a daily basis. I do feel bad because it's probably like overwhelming, but that is unfortunately the way of how social media is. Like they can love you or they can hate you, but the thing is, like, you can get death threats even when you're like a normal person like myself. I've never gotten a death threat, but the closest thing I've gotten to a threat was probably like maybe a month ago, and this is because of something like super minuscule. Like I tend to like troll a lot, okay, on dating apps because I don't really take them seriously. But this person was like in particular really mad about it, and he was like, oh my god, like I hope when you get pregnant someone pushes you down the stairs and you get a miscarriage. I've never been told that, and I was just kind of like, damn, like no one's ever told me they hope that I get a miscarriage. I feel like that's kind of a death threat. Like I didn't even do anything. To be fair, I didn't really even do anything. He just said it because I was just being funny. And if you get that riled up, or me doing nothing is crazy. But I've had my fair share of hate comments for doing absolutely nothing. Like I've said in my like recent video, like of my short, that I've gotten like comments about the Tinder video, because when I was like 19 I went on that Tinder date, and that video was going like, it was going well. Like it had its good run for like 4 or 5 years, but I was getting hate comments up until maybe last year or the year before, but people were really ruthless under that video. It's just how, unfortunately, how it is. Like you have to have thick skin when you do this stuff. It comes with a risk. It's not always going to be glitz and glamour, and that's coming from someone that's been posting on the internet since I was like 11 years old. I've never gotten hate comments until I started posting on YouTube, and I started like getting a little bit of a following. A grain of salt, like these people are just projecting a lot of the times. These people are unhappy, and or they just want attention. Like it's a slew of different reasons of why people do the things that they do. You can't internalize every little thing that people are saying. Unfortunately, like I think I used to do that, when I was younger, because I started my YouTube channel, like this YouTube channel, when I was in high school. So I did probably internalize every little comment I was getting, because I wasn't used to getting hundreds and hundreds of comments. And so I was just like, oh my god, like people, like I was getting a lot of support, but sometimes people like outweigh the bad versus the good. Like they'll always nitpick that one comment for a long time, and you could tell when it bothers someone, because they'll make a lot of videos about it and stuff like that. But you can't let people win, because it's getting what they wanted. I felt generally bad, but you have to like be aware, like the internet has gotten more bolder with their comments. People are like, she's gotten the very easy parts, okay? People have gotten doxxed, people have gotten internet stalked in real life, people have gotten swatted. I remember one time where, I don't know if you guys know who Darius is. He made like, he's like this person, like this, I'm gonna say a kid, but he's 18 now or 19 now, but he had autism, and he talks a little bit, but he went viral a couple years ago because he used to make like stimming sounds that sounded like he was like beatboxing low-key. So people were making like remixes of his stimming, because it was like kind of catchy in a way. But him and his mom just make silly videos all the time, and she's on the older side, which I kind of feel bad for, because I always sympathize with the parents that are older and have people like kids with disabilities, like severe disabilities. But all she's doing is just spreading awareness about people with autism, okay? That's all she really does. I love her content. I used to really like binge watch her videos when she used to like show up on my feed a lot. But there was one time where her like house got swatted, and she was terrified. I mean, she was like, bro, like she was telling, like she had her hands up and everything. This was probably last year. And she's like, don't shoot us. Like, I have a child with autism. Like, please don't shoot us. Like, y'all are swatting innocent people. There was also another situation with another person where they got swatted for no reason. And it's insane. It's insane how bold people are on the internet, because all she does is post awareness videos and make people feel less alone when they have a child with special needs. I know probably how isolating that can be, but that's all she does. She's a very unproblematic person. I literally protect her at all costs, but I was definitely very upset about that. It was something about like something very minuscule, and somebody doxed her address and swatted her. This is just the beginning. Like, she has the easy breezy modes. These are just comments. Like, you don't have the thoughts of people. Like, she did have fears of people like harming her, which I hope that never happens. Like, she needs like security. Like, Ryan can only do so much as a person. She says that she understands why like people were mad at her, because she just got out of prison. And then it pans to Ryan and Gypsy, and I decided to drive to Ryan's family to meet up with them for dinner. And I think this was her first time meeting Ryan's family, but it was a decent moment. Like, they just basically just ate dinner and stuff like that and took pictures. Ryan's boss randomly calls him while they're at the dinner, and his boss asked if he was ever gonna make it back to work. They were like, oh, are you gonna make it back on Tuesday? Because I guess they've been watching him on social media, and they've been peeping, like they've been wondering if he's ever gonna come back, because he's been all over the media for probably like a week or two. So Ryan was like, oh, he was a celebrity at the school, because they've been seeing him online. And I think one of the parents' kids that he worked with was like annoyed, because they're waiting for him to come back. And if you didn't know, he is I don't know if he is still, but I heard that he got fired from being in the media too much, but I don't know if it's true. But he was a special needs teacher. He was saying that he was saying that he thinks that his boss didn't want him to come back, didn't think he would come back. And then the next day, Ryan and Gypsy heads out to this place to pick out a venue, because they didn't have a formal wedding. Like I said before, I think they had their wedding in prison, and it was like right by a bathroom apparently. Like it was in front of a bathroom or near a bathroom is what she said. And then the wedding planner shows how the venue will look and how it will be decorated. At home, Gypsy meets with the therapist because it was one of her directives for her parole. So she had no choice but to see a therapist, which is really good. I hope that she keeps up with it because I feel like she definitely still needs it. Talks about her consult because every first appointment with the therapist, if you've never had a therapist, the first one is always a consult. It's basically like a questionnaire to get to know you, and then they take like intake. That she said that the therapist didn't know much about Munchausen by proxy, so she was only going to be treating her for trauma, because I don't know why she didn't know much about it. You would think as a therapist, like she would know a little bit more about that, since it's probably like not talked about, but I feel like it's talked about enough that you should be a little bit acknowledged, like have some knowledge about it. But maybe she doesn't have a lot of clients that have that trauma. Saying that the therapist said that she needs to focus on herself and not so much on the social media attention, because now that she's gotten a phone and now that she's gotten like Instagram and TikTok, all she basically talks about is social media now because of the comments that she's been getting. Then she decides to go in the bathroom and take a picture of herself in a sports bra with some like leggings to show off her surgical scars. And it was basically like a little like power self-love moment, because she used to not like them, and now that she has to look at them all the time, she has learned to accept them. Because like you could see like under her, like around her stomach area is indents of the feeding tube things and where they took it out and had it like stitched up and stuff. Then it pans to Ryan, and he talks about like how he got a email from the person that did their wedding venue. Like it was at the, I think it was called Degas house, the lady at the Degas house. And then he was saying that in order to use that venue, they have to give her 50% of the quote in order to reserve the day that they choose to get married. And then Gypsy explains that she's under a lot of stress and from what's going on, and she wants to be known as just Gypsy and not Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And then she was saying that she was very overwhelmed with people coming up to her all the time, and that she doesn't feel like it was the right timing to think about wedding planning because she was super overwhelmed and stressed out by everything. So she was just like, maybe just another time. And that's basically how it ends. The next episode looks like it's going to be talking about Ken again. She gets like a tattoo of like, I don't know what the symbol was, but it's like on her arm. And it was, what caught my eye is that she got a K on her leg for Ken right in front of Ryan. And then she also visits Dee Dee's grave. This episode, they keep like kind of teasing it. I don't know if everything's gonna be happening at once, but the next episode also talked about how she had a nightmare about her mom, and I think that's what made her go to her grave. And then she had the tattoos, and then her mom calls her again saying that like Ken is single. And then Gypsy was saying that if she wasn't married to Ryan, that she would be jumping into Ken's arms. So yeah, all for this episode. These episodes been kind of going by really fast, and I feel like it's very slow paced. There's not really a lot going on in these last few episodes. I feel like I'm kind of repeating a lot of what's been happening the week prior, low-key. I wanted to see Ken already, and I want to see how that's gonna go, because we already know that they're not together. So I just want to see the next part. Like, we need to get like more current with the events, because I'm overseeing these two together now. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I don't know if you guys peeped this, but every time you say subscribe, the subscribe button lights up. but I peeped that like when I used to say it a lot. I thought that was really cool. But make sure you check out my socials, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys. Oh my god, it's still recording. Cool.